Hello, and welcome to the Indie Dev Podcast. I'm your host, David Voiles. With me this week is Nick Robalik. Nick is an independent game designer and developer who started the New York City-based game studio PixelMetal in 2012. His goal is to make fun, entertaining games for people of all backgrounds and ages. His professional career spans over 15 years of art and creative direction in the advertising and marketing industries, including work for big labels such as Audi, Coca-Cola, Google, M&M, and Samsung. Nick's also spent some time as professor at both Drexel and Temple Universities, which is right near me, in the fields of interactive design and computer animation, and has also been published on the topics of computer animation and digital audio production. Nick's newest game, Sombrero, marks his return to the commercial game development after 10 years. Advertising work is paying for the development, but please don't hold that against him. Nick, thank you for joining us.
Sure thing, Dave. How you doing today?
Good, good. So you have quite a diverse background over here. I like this.
Well, it's all computer design nerd stuff. So
yeah,
it's
definitely.
kind of all in that field.
All the creative aspects.
Yeah.
I do like that you were also working at both Drexel and Temple. I live about 10 minutes from Drexel and about 15 minutes from Temple, and my work has me going back and forth there each week. So it's nice to find someone else working or having worked in that atmosphere.
Yeah, until I moved. I moved out of the area, so it was a little bit harder to teach there because I had moved to Texas, so I wasn't going to commute to Philadelphia to do adjunct teaching. Sadly.
Yeah, but now you're in New York?
Now I am in New York, yep.
Okay, so we made opposite moves because I'm a New Yorker now living in Philadelphia, and you're a Philadelphia person now living in New York.
Oh, I didn't know you were from here. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Grew up on Long Island.
Ah, gotcha.
So why don't we get started with how did you get started in this creative field, right? Animation and visual effects. Like, what was the catalyst to get you started?
Going into my mother's workplace when I was around, I guess 9 or 10, and they had some pretty early IBMs there, and just playing around with those. I mean, they let me play around with them when I was that old.
Oh, nice.
And that sort of set me on my path. And then when I was in elementary school, parents got a computer at home,
Yep.
Ostensibly a work computer for my mom again, and I tended to take that over when she wasn't using it for work.
I think it's how a lot of us got started with our computers.
Yeah, and I guess a little bit before I was born, my parents had already bought an Atari, the first one.
Nice.
2600, I guess, and which I still have, and it's probably the only the only console I have that still works. I think they made those things to survive a nuclear apocalypse back then.
Yeah, seriously, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have hardware from other consoles that just, the disc tray stops spinning or the laser doesn't work anymore after just a couple of years. So the fact that an Atari can hold up so long.
Yeah. So I have that. I have an old Pong console, dedicated Pong console that I don't know if they had or if I got from another relative. And they both work perfectly, of course. Even once you get to the the early Nintendo stuff, it's especially the U.S. made Nintendo
right.
or U.S. model, I should say. It starts to
like not the top loader. It's the one with the more moving
That's
parts.
what I ended up having to do. I've managed to get a hold of the second model that's a top loader for Nintendo.
Ah, nice.
And that works fine. But yeah, there you go.
Okay, so you got started with that, and then why did you start going towards, we'll say, like the visual effects and creative path as opposed to gaming? Or was it gaming that you started in first, left, and then came back?
No, I just always liked doing, drawing a lot when I was a kid. And back then there wasn't any kind of Photoshop or anything like that, and I really wanted to try and do art stuff on the computer, so I ended up picking up a book from the library, I think on Basic or something like that, and writing my own simple little art program.
Yep.
So I've always been interested in the technology stuff, but using the technology to design and animate things, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, so gaming had obviously always been a passion of yours. And I mean, looking at some of your work here, you have fantastic art. I'm just looking at things like your Super Ultra HD, which clearly inspired by Contra in the first one, and then Metroid in the second image here. So fantastic art skills. How did you get into programming for games or development as a whole?
It was necessity, I guess. Back to that, 8 or 9 years old, writing a program in Basic to make art on a computer with ASCII characters. It was always been out of necessity. I never intended to be a developer. It came in really handy once I started getting into the marketing and advertising world, especially when it was starting to embrace the idea of doing interactive marketing and advertising, because I could easily jump into not even Flash, pre-Flash, a Perl script or some simple PHP to get something working, or early JavaScript kind of stuff, which was a lot more rare back then. That tended to be stuff that even the developers weren't super familiar with, because it was all very new.
Right. They're just looking at it as like a static page, where you're looking at it as like an interactive canvas.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that's all a website is to me. It's just it's a canvas you can put stuff on, and you can either do the boring kind, which is just very simple and static, or you can try and really dig in and make something cool. And so
absolutely.
So that's always been my main interest, and that's what drove me into doing marketing and advertising. Because I went to school for computer animation.
Okay.
And back then it was we were rendering on high-end Silicon graphics workstations. There wasn't really much desktop software yet. 3D Studio was still DOS. I think maybe. Actually, no, I'm probably exaggerating. I think the first version of the first Windows version may have just come out, and I remember the week that I graduated college is when Maya 1.0 came out. So I'm going back a while. This is probably this is like 16 or 17 years ago at this point, and I went out to California and thought about doing that for a bit, and did some lower end and simpler visual effects for some TV and some film stuff, and just didn't really care for I didn't really like California, I guess, to be straightforward.
Well, the cost of living isn't something to like either. So
yeah. Even back then, it was pretty expensive, especially for someone just out of school getting paid crap.
Yes.
And after being out there for about a year, I realized that all of my friends were from New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware.
Yep.
And I just decided that, well, if that's who I'm hanging out with, I might as well just go back to those places and see what happens back here. And I was only back here for maybe 3 or 4 days, staying at a friend's place outside of Philadelphia.
Yep.
And just coming up to New York looking for jobs. It only took a couple days. I ended up getting a job at Razorfish, early on when they were still only a couple of years old, and that was that.
Oh, nice. Okay, so it sounds like you got your foot in the door through that way, at least professionally, and kind of really started to find your niche.
Yeah, I managed to sneak in really, really early. But during that whole time period, I was still doing game stuff, either doing freelance art or I was working in the early 2000s on some very early mobile games, pre iPhone.
You're still talking like flip phone at this point, like just phone, past the Snake 2 era.
Exactly. We were thrilled that we had 24 colors on the high end handset.
You may not even have a sprite at that point. It's like just a static image you can kind of maneuver a little bit.
Yeah, I think the first couple games were like that, and then I think there was some basic sprite stuff when we started digging into the J2ME and Brew Java. That opened up some new possibilities. So I got to work on some fun properties, like a Babe Ruth baseball game. And I'm not even a sports guy, but it's fun. It's fun to work on something like that. It's like it's I don't like baseball, but this is Babe Ruth. I mean, come on, they named a candy bar after him.
Exactly.
And so that was fun. And then for a while there, I just didn't have time because of my career in advertising and stuff to work on many games. And then a few years ago, I spent a couple of years outside of advertising. I opened up a co-working space in Brooklyn.
Oh, nice.
Called Bitman.
Which part of Brooklyn?
It was on the edge of Williamsburg.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a hot little area to definitely have a little startup
farther
space.
in. Yeah. I mean, the area that I was in wasn't quite as gentrified because it was the only place I could afford rent, really.
Yeah.
To rent a space.
Yeah,
to open up
seriously.
co-working.
The rent in Brooklyn in the last couple of years,
Yeah.
or at least in Williamsburg, has been skyrocketing.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So I did that for a few years until the area got nicer and gentrified, maybe a little too gentrified, and then the landlord shot the rent through the roof. They wanted a ridiculous amount of money, and now I think it's a pet store, which is a shame because I spent a lot of money on putting in brand new pine floors and all this kind of stuff. Oh no, not pine, they were oak floors actually. Now that I think about it, and completely remodeling the space. It had been a radiology lab, and they had left a lot of very heavy equipment there, so we had to have and pull out a 9-ton MRI machine, that kind of stuff. Almost
not what you want to be doing when you're moving in.
Yeah. Almost collapsed the floor into the basement because it was so heavy. It was an adventure. But while I was there, the last few months I was there, I started doing with some people in the space and some friends I made in New York doing little game jams, little game contests.
Okay.
And so when it came time to close the space down, to make a decision, hey, do I want to do this full time, which I didn't want to manage, be an office manager full time, or do I want to go back into advertising and marketing? I said, well, I'll go back into advertising and marketing, and then if I don't have the space to run anymore, I'll have time to do some game stuff. And that's around the time I started working on some stuff and including Sombrero.
Okay. So it sounds like game jams are definitely a good way for you to get acclimated to the industry again and kind of dip your toes into everything. And I'm constantly encouraging students to go out and do the same because there are so many game jams available to them. I mean, even in unorthodox ways. For example, GDC, Annual Game Developer Conference in San Francisco, starts next week on Monday. And a bunch of people flew into Chicago today to actually do the annual Train Jam. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I know. I know about the Train Jam, yeah.
Yep. So Train Jam, essentially people fly in and take a long Amtrak all the way over from Chicago to San Francisco, and the entire duration they're hacking away on their computers making games during this time, and they're live tweeting it and streaming it on Twitch and things like that. And so when people say, "Oh, I can't find a game jam to go to," I say, "What? These people are hacking away on a train. If they can do it there, you can do it anywhere."
Yeah. Well, even aside from game jams like that, there's nothing stopping anybody from downloading some game engine and just going at it just to get used to it, just to see what's really involved in the process. I think some people come in and oh, I'm starting with the game engine, it's going to be really easy to get my game up and running, and I just sort of shake my head.
It's like there's a lot more than it to just that.
Yeah, and it's sad to see people get frustrated sometimes, or try to spin not doing a very good job as doing a good job, which always sort of drives me a little bit crazy because they're selling themselves short, really.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the industry I think is a lot easier to enter now, and you don't even really need to be in the industry or be involved in any kind of like industry stuff to just go make a game, and that's been successful for people in the past. There's no reason it can't be again.
Like a good way for them to get started. No, I agree completely. And even looking at this Train Jam, I mean, it's like $170 for the train to get there. And I mean, even Epic Games sponsors a bit of it, and has a lunch and things there. And that's how I remembered it was even going on. One of my friends at Epic said she was going. But I'm looking at some of your other work here for like game jams, and you see you have I Must Escape, which actually looks fantastic.
That was a lot of fun.
I can always butcher their name. I feel bad. Skira.
Don't feel bad, Dave. I have no idea how to say it either.
Okay. Yeah, it's SCIRRA. But anyway, they make Construct 2, which is an incredible HTML5 game creation tool with a built-in
super powerful
GUI and editor. Yeah, I mean, I have a 9-year-old at home, and he uses it to make lots of games. But at the same time, I'm also using it and teaching with it, largely because it is so simple to use and because it essentially exports everything as HTML5 and JavaScript. If you have a browser, for the most part, it works.
Yeah, they have some pretty advanced features in there too. I mean, you can
WebGL, shaders.
The WebGL, the shaders, online multiplayer, online real-time multiplayer. which is crazy. And they're doing it all through browser technology and WebKit and Node.js and all. Oh, it's not Node.js anymore. NW.js.
Yeah, I know. I'm going through some Node problems right now, so I can relate.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it's really easy to jump into. You can just throw a bunch of objects on the screen, kind of Flash style in terms of just moving stuff around. Or if you want to try and do something more advanced, you can do it all through, code. And it's not straight JavaScript. It's sort of their weird version of JavaScript that works through their editor. But I'm for Sombrero, I'm loading in external images and tile maps and all that stuff, and I'm just doing it all with code. There's nothing on the canvas. It's just
so what are you making your latest game with?
I'm actually making Sombrero with Construct 2.
Oh, perfect. Well, so that ties in very well, actually. I was just looking at Construct 2 on your page, or I'm sorry, the I Must Escape, thinking like, wow, he kind of works with everything. Holy cow, your game looks fantastic too. So yeah, well, why don't you keep going into what you were saying about Construct 2? I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. No, I mean, I'd say it's great. It's great because it is a tool that you could really know very little about and get up to speed very quickly. And if you do know, or if you do have some development background, it makes it you can do some very, very advanced things in it. There's very little to stop you from doing, as long as it's 2D. Obviously, there's very little to stop you from doing whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
and across multiple platforms.
Yeah, and again, it spits out essentially an HTML5 canvas, which allows you to tinker with it however you'd like. So I play with this pretty often. I use their visual scripting, especially for teaching students. But is there a way that you can use like just JavaScript and write to it, or do all of your events have to be done with their scripting system?
Well, they have a kind of what's the way to put it? A generic event, I guess, that you can just throw JavaScript into.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
And you can make references to like your character and rotation, things like that inside the game.
Exactly. Yeah. But the more native to Construct 2 way to do it would be to take advantage of their API and write a plugin for it, which you can also write in JavaScript, that allows you to use add more advanced features while still keeping the ability to use their more straightforward visual scripting system.
Oh, awesome!
Which is good. I haven't had to write. I think I've had to write one plugin from scratch, and it was a very, very simple plugin, and it was really just more of a test to see how hard it was to write a plugin, and it was very straightforward.
Oh, I see, like easy extensibility.
Yeah, and they mean it. I mean, it is very easy, especially if you have JavaScript experience. Jumping into their, I guess I shouldn't say API, their SDK is very straightforward, and it's very, very easy to add functionality that way. And I think most of the functionality in Construct 2 is they just wrote plugins with their own SDK and include them when you buy it, which is great because that means you can dig into the code and change the way everything works if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. This is awesome. So why did you choose Construct 2 as opposed to rolling your own or using someone else's tool?
Well, rolling my own because I wasn't going to have time to do Sombrero full time was just out of the realm of possibilities just based on time alone. And I had been using Unity for quite a few years, not necessarily for games, but for actually advertising and marketing stuff.
Okay.
Doing some mobile apps and doing some presentation stuff because it's so easy to get 3D stuff up and running in Unity that it was a no-brainer to use it for presentations, basically. Mm-hmm. A very fancy PowerPoint. is what I use Unity for most of the time, and because the Unity script, I used Unity script more than C# in Unity, because I just didn't know any C# and never had any interest in learning it really, and Unity script is so similar to JavaScript and ActionScript that it was very easy to get up to speed in, and I never ran into any issues with getting what I wanted to work. Using Unity script. But when it came to doing Sombrero, I wanted to do something that was strictly 2D. And at that point in time, and this is going back a couple of years now, Unity's 2D tools were subpar.
Right,
and I'm still
because it wasn't until the last 2 years or so that they've actually even added 2D tools.
Yeah, they had some early stuff. A lot of it was faking 2D and 3D.
Yeah, and like extensions that you could buy from people like Uni 2D and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't want to do that. Even now, I'm still not a huge fan of their 2D stuff. I mean, it looks great. You can get great 2D stuff up and running, but the effort it takes to get it up and running compared to other development tools is silly. It takes way too much effort to get something very, very simple working. In terms of gameplay, getting a character in there and getting them to move around is simple. It's a couple lines of code, but doing anything more advanced is just it's just such a pain in the ass. Or at least
something like Construct 2, you just dropped in and you were good to go.
Yeah. Even on the occasions where I basically rewrote their platform, they have a default behavior, they call it, that's Mario style platformer.
Right.
For player controls.
They have a ton of templates to get started with.
Yeah.
And like a huge selling point for me using this when I'm teaching university students is, I'm sure you run into this too. Students will always ask, not so much college students, but people learning anything in general. How do I do this? How do I do that? Which is fine. So, for example, someone had asked, how do I make a grenade in the game? Is essentially the effect they were looking for. And I said, well, go Google this first. I said, but what you're looking for, you got to break it down into small steps, right? A grenade has particles, right? It has a little explosion. It has a sprite. It'll probably rotate. So break it down into these little baby steps, like what is a sprite? How does a sprite rotate? What are particles? How do they work? And then besides, because Construct 2 is such a large community, most of these questions were actually answered in their forums already, or they had templates on how to do all of this.
Yeah, their educational tools are great, and they have a very large a very large tutorial section too, starting out with what a sprite is, like you're saying, all the way up to here's how to build a massively multiplayer game.
Oh yeah,
and that's great. It's great that they took the time and effort to do that, because that really is a lot of work putting together stuff for people who have no experience a lot of the time to understand how game development works.
Yeah,
so I'm big fans of the way they do things. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, a lot of people assume you can still just hit one button and export to a different platform, but there's still a lot going on under the hood there.
Yeah, and I think that might be their biggest downfall right now, is that because they market it as this development tool that anyone can use with no experience.
Yeah,
that's what a lot of the stuff coming out of it is. So there hasn't been a lot of killer apps. I mean, there's been a couple. There's Infinity Blade, which I think is on, which is like
that's Unreal Engine. Yeah.
Not Infinity Blade. I'm sorry. It's such a similar name.
Well, they had for Unity, the big ones I can think of are like Hitman Go, Lara Croft.
Yeah. Oh no, I was trying to think of the big Construct 2 games.
I have no idea.
There's one called the Next Penelope, which is an overhead 2D racer. That's sort of a combination of Death Rally. Do you remember the old Death Rally game?
No.
The old 3D Realms did it years ago. I mean, this is going back
1996,
like 20 years.
Oh wow, yeah, I do remember this.
Yeah, so it's a bit like that combined with
Apogee software,
with sort of Contra style bosses in it randomly.
Yeah,
and it's a lot of fun. And I mean, it's ridiculously polished. And the other one I'm trying to think of, Insanity's Blade. Not Infinity Blade, and that's on Steam already, and it's another 2D side scroller, because Unity is really just it's 2D. There's some tools to have 3D work in it, but 2D is the way to go with Construct. But yeah, Insanity's Blade, which is great. It's an old sort of arcade beat 'em up, maybe like a Castlevania. It has that very gothic 16-bit look to it, and it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. But those are the only two I can really think of that are these guys are really really pushing it, like showing what you can do with Construct 2. The rest of it's there's a lot of mobile stuff. There's a couple other decent games that are smaller on Steam that have been built in Construct, and that I definitely don't want to say are not good games. They're just not. They're not pushing forward HTML5 technology as these other games are.
Yeah. Someone says Airscape, Fall of Gravity, Mortar Melon.
Oh, Airscape!
Penelope.
I forgot about that. Yeah, that one's fun, but it's simple.
Oh, Penelope! I have seen this one before.
And
yes.
it's fast. It's 60 frames a second, and it's you can't stop. You're always moving forward, so it's just about steering and shooting. Kind of in this, there's a track, so it's not quite like an endless runner, but you never slow down. All you can do is speed up. And so it's this great arcade style game, and I think it has local multiplayer as well.
And just gorgeous visuals.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, absolutely gorgeous. It's such a good looking game.
It kind of reminds me of what was that Super NES game? Like it reminds me of the ships from Star Fox, but
like F-Zero.
Yes, F-Zero.
Yeah.
But definitely has like an F-Zero look to it.
Yeah, it definitely does, and it's so I recommend it to anybody. It's a great game, and I think they're in the middle of porting it over to some consoles right now as well. Last I heard.
Nice.
But yeah, highly recommend it. I don't think it's that much. Maybe it's $10 to $15. It's only $13 actually. So
this is nice.
Totally worth buying. Beautiful. One guy made it. It's one of those scenarios where one guy just did everything.
And at that point, everyone else I get jealous that someone can do so much as an individual, and I can do so little.
Well, I think he's another guy that I think is coming from the ad marketing, interactive design world.
Yeah.
So he's probably coming into it like I was, like an artist, and then probably also like I was struggling to learn how to do real game development.
Yep.
So I think you and I were probably coming at from opposite directions. You reading through your blog posts and stuff, and then listening to some of your other podcasts. You know so much more about development than I do. that it's kind of embarrassing. What's that?
No. The good thing about doing this podcast is I realize how little I know, but I get to learn so much from other people. So I don't actually know much. It's just that I fake it based on my conversations with other people.
Okay. Well, you're much better at faking it than I am then.
You gotta fake it till you make it.
Yeah. So if somebody asks me how to do something I don't know, I say I don't have any idea. I'm a designer, not a programmer.
There you go. Instead, I'll fake it until I get caught.
Yeah. That's fine. That works.
So we're talking about everyone else's games.
Yeah,
Why don't we talk about your game, Sombrero,
Sure.
and what that process has been like for you?
It's been a lot of work. That's the shortest way to answer that question. It's been a lot of work. I mean, it started life as one character doodled on a Post-it note,
okay.
and just an enjoyment of spaghetti westerns, and
Yep.
then over the course of the last few years, I guess maybe about 3 years now, it's grown into this multiplayer game with it's a lot of characters in there now. I don't know, 16 characters specifically from Sombrero. There's some other characters in there from some other indie games that some local New York people have developed. It's sort of grown into what I intended to be this very simple kind of deathmatch free for all, which is what the very first thing I showed 2 or 3 months into development at Playcrafting.
Playcrafting. Can you explain that for folks who don't know?
Oh yeah, good call. It's just a game meetup. They do classes, although I haven't really done any of the classes. I mostly go to the play testing events they do, where they'll have 50, 60 game teams come in and show their games off to the public. It costs a few bucks to go, but you kind of get your money back in all the free pizza and soda, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, that's a fair deal.
Yeah, I think so too. And being able to play 50, 60 games that some of them are out, some of them are not out, and it's everything from small, simple mobile puzzle games up to much larger console style games.
Yeah, and you're learning from people who are knee deep in it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Especially the other developers that are really trying to push things. There's some really great small teams that are working on everything from mobile to console games that are just really, really impressive. But it's funny, those tend to be the people that don't teach the classes because they're too busy making games. That's their full-time career. It's only recently that Sombrero has really become my full-time full-time thing just in the last couple months.
Oh, so how did you make that transition from having a different gig to suddenly doing this?
Oh, I just left my job.
Oh, right. You built up the courage one day and said enough is enough.
That was it. This is not working. It's my career can go up through corporate world, or I can work out of the local bar at near my apartment and chat with people and work on video games.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to try that for a little bit, see how that goes. What really spurred my decision was at actually the event I finally met you in person at, Dave, the GameCon in Atlantic City.
Yep.
A publisher rep got in touch with me because of that. And so hopefully in the next day or two, I'm going to have a publishing contract signed, which will be
awesome.
Cool.
That would be very good.
And it'll help the little bit of advance that I asked for, they okayed, and it'll help me get in a few features that I didn't think I'd have time to get in.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to say because it's not signed yet. So,
yeah.
but it would be good. It would be good. It would not necessarily make for a better game, but make for a bigger game. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to do.
Awesome, cool. So you quickly got your foot in the door and started flying. This is nice.
Well, I think it's going to be at GDC. I don't know if I'll be at GDC because I'm actually flying down to South by Southwest on Saturday. And
oh, nice. You're a busy person.
Yeah, it's going to be busy, and I might be able to get out to the last couple days of GDC. But I haven't been out to GDC since probably 2013.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not 2013. I'm sorry, 2003.
Oh, holy cow! It has definitely changed a lot since then.
And back then, I was just I got to go for free because I was a forum moderator for GameDev.net, which I had done for
awesome.
I had done for years.
I love that place.
And they're good guys. They're all good folks. I stay in touch with most of them. And as I get more back into the games, I find myself running into them more and more, online and in person. And yeah, so I don't know if GDC is something that I'm necessarily going to be at or am super into. I don't really like big shows anymore, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Kind of burnt out after a while.
Yeah, a little burnout, and it gets to be overwhelming.
Yeah, this is the first year that I've skipped in 7 years.
Yeah, but I'll definitely be at PAX East. I'll have a booth at PAX East. With again, assuming everything goes through with the publishers. If not, I might just set up a table outside of PAX East.
Well, if you do go to PAX East, let me know because I will be there.
Yeah, I've never been to PAX. It ties back into that whole overwhelming so many people thing. And but I'm going to try. I'm going to try and make it to PAX East if all the publisher stuff goes through.
Yeah, it's an absolute blast there. But
that's what I hear. Yeah,
it's more for like press and people kind of going to hang out and play games.
Yeah, that was
but
my
still,
impression too.
A lot of people are there, like showcasing what they're doing too.
Yeah, that's more what I want to see. I want to see the showcase stuff.
Yep.
I'm not huge gaming press fan, I guess. I tend to go more towards the YouTube crowd and the Twitch crowd these days, just because you and I both. It's more straightforward. There's it's about the games, and it's only about the games. And that's what I care about when I'm talking about games. So I don't...
You want to stay out of the drama and everything else?
Yeah, I tried my best to stay out of the drama. I get sucked into it sometimes, which is part of the reason I'm going to be at South by Southwest. But by and large, I'm not a huge fan of drama, which may surprise some people to hear who know me. And games. It's about the games. It's about making and playing fun games with all kinds of people. Don't care about anything else.
That's often why I go to. I go to see some developer friends, play some old games, and it's an excuse to socialize with your like-minded brethren for a couple of days.
Exactly, and it's nice to meet new people at those events too.
Absolutely,
I've met some super awesome people, even at the local events that have come in from Boston. I mean, there was a guy from I think Lithuania at the Atlantic City event that
and we thought we had a trip getting over there.
I know,
huh?
seriously, right? It's like,
you're an hour north, I'm an hour
Atlantic
south.
City, yeah. Well, we just didn't want to go to Atlantic City. We can say that. But yeah, I mean, he was there from Lithuania, and I think it was his game that won the best art direction award at the event.
Oh, nice.
Which he
also is worth it for him to go. Then.
Yeah, I mean, he completely deserved. The game was absolutely gorgeous in that very Eastern European kind of way. That I really appreciate. Everything had a lot of texture and depth to it.
Yeah.
That a lot of in smaller indie games made stateside. So it was awesome, and it was great to meet him. Such a nice guy, and we hit it off. And of course, got to stay in touch with people like that because
that is
they're
the
in it
key.
for the games.
Yeah, and as you both start to come up, you remaining in touch. That's how you get through and grow with the industry as well.
Yeah. But I also need to say to that it's growing and becoming more popular shouldn't disconnect people from where they came from, which I think has a tendency to happen sometimes. And so it's important to support the newer developers that are doing awesome stuff as well, and help them get as much attention as they can get, so that they can help the next round of people as well.
Yeah, exactly. A large reason why I do this show is just so I can kind of connect people, mix and mingle, share their story. And I'm always looking to learn from them and kind of showcase what it is that they're doing, how they got started, to break down the wall for others who think, oh, it's impossible. But, I mean, in the last couple of episodes, we've had people from completely different backgrounds who are, ranging 60 years of experience between each person. I had someone on the show who's in his late 60s a couple weeks ago, and then I've had people on here who are 21. So it's, I want to share as many stories as possible.
Yeah, I think people worry sometimes about a wall being thrown up, or just a wall being in the way because they're a new developer. And I mean, the best advice I would have for anyone is just run straight at the wall as fast as you can, because it's really just made out of tissue paper painted to look like brick, and no one's going to stop you if you're doing a good job.
That is a very good way of looking at it. I like that. So now we're coming around the home stretch here. Mm-hmm. So the way I like to wrap up every show is, on the previous episode, the gentleman I had was Chris Love. He had asked a question. So what I'd like for you to do is answer this question in a moment, and then when we're finished, I would like for you to ask a question for the next guest I will have on. Sound good?
Oh, jeez. All right.
Okay. So I got you at the edge of your seat.
Okay.
The question from the previous developer, Chris Love, was, what are you doing today to ensure your health for the next 10 years? Not necessarily game dev related, but his episode was largely about health and staying alive so you can keep creating your games.
Oh, okay. I'll just be honest. I'm not doing anything to do anything like that.
Honesty is the best policy.
I've been very lucky and have a very, very speedy metabolism.
That's good.
So I've never had to worry about the kind of absolute junk that I put into my body, especially at gaming events.
Cheese doodles and sandwiches and whatever else.
Yeah, at home I tend to eat healthier. I think mostly because my girlfriend makes me eat healthier, and because she wants to eat healthier. She doesn't want me to die. Which is nice. I appreciate the person that I'm living with not wanting me to keel over one day.
That's a fair deal.
And it's the food tastes just as good, healthy as the junk food most of the time.
Perfect.
But yeah, I mean, I try not to do too much. I mean, I'm in New York, so it's I walk everywhere. I don't have a car.
There you go.
I don't take cabs 3 blocks like people used to do when I was in Texas, which always sort of drove me crazy.
You could have walked in that time.
Yeah. Well, I used to get the weirdest looks walking down the street. Like, what, you don't have a car? Are you poor? It's like, no, I gotta walk to the 2 blocks. What am I gonna get in a car for? Like, oh, it's hot.
Right.
It's like, well, wear shorts.
Yeah, and in New York, like in the not suburbs, in the boroughs, it gets weird if you have a car.
Yeah, and it's
like, are you rich?
Yeah, and it's so expensive, and it's so hard to find parking, and people are gonna run into it and ding it up. Yeah, I mean, I have a motorcycle here that I haven't driven in a year that I bought when I was in Texas.
Yeah.
Because I don't need it, really.
Yeah.
And anytime I park it on the street, someone knocks it over, or I had someone slash my seat multiple times.
Oh God.
Someone tried to steal my battery, because that's just the way New York is.
A nice UI left.
Yeah, well. Philly's not much better, but you're out in Montgomery County, so you're a little bit safer.
Yeah.
But yeah. I mean, I don't try to do anything to keep healthy, but I end up doing it just because that's the way New York is, and I like walking to places as opposed to hopping on the subway to walk half a mile.
Yeah.
So I might as well just. Yeah. So if I'm walking half a mile to go somewhere, I'm probably walking there to eat dinner or something.
Yeah.
So I'll walk there and then I'll walk back, and hey, there you go. I just burned off my dinner.
Perfect. Well, especially if you've had nice weather like it's been as of late. It's like 75 and sunny.
Yeah,
so.
Today's actually warm.
Yeah. I'm actually going up to New York in 2 weeks to get my motorcycle. I store it up there in a garage because it's been so freaking nice for the last month. So.
Yeah, you might as well. I mean, especially out where you are, you have some back roads that are in.
Oh yeah, it's like trees and beautiful
roads
and windy. Yeah.
Not in Philadelphia so much, and especially not in New York, but Montgomery County takes care of their roads.
Oh yes. So, what is your question for the next developer who will come on to the show?
Okay, I need a minute to think about this.
If I could find that Jeopardy music and play it on the show.
I wasn't expecting this to actually have
That's my goal.
To ask.
I'm always looking to throw people off.
I thought I just got to show my own product. But okay. So
anything involving games.
Okay, I'm trying to think of a game thing. And I'm trying to think of a game thing that someone else probably has not asked before, which is going to be hard.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do this because it relates to what I'm doing right now in the middle of completely abandoning my career.
Okay.
Would you abandon your career, your full-time career, if it meant that you got to work on games full-time with no guarantee of success?
If you got to work on games full-time with no guarantee of success. Yeah, and that's always a risky venture that people are trying to weigh out and consider. Like, hey, I can do this, but in the long run, will it benefit me? I don't know. I think it's true of any startup or independent creation too.
Oh, I agree.
That is a very good question.
Yeah. I don't think that's game specific.
Yeah, and the more startup related books that I read, the more I see this is prevalent. In particular, I'm going through The Hard Thing About Hard Things right now, which is a fantastic book by Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz Venture Capital.
Okay.
All right. So, are there any final words you want to get out the door? I mean, release date, platforms for your game, and then finally, where can we find your work? And this is for the people who may not visit the site but may just hear this on their mobile devices.
Okay. So if the publisher stuff goes through, the game will be out towards the end of the summer. Mm-hmm. And it'll be out initially on Steam and a couple other digital stores for Windows, OS X, and SteamOS.
Perfect.
I don't want to say Linux because there's too many flavors, so I'm just going to say SteamOS. And,
there you go.
And hopefully not too long after that, I'll be looking at getting the Xbox One version out.
Okay.
Which seems like, just based on some early tests, I should be able to do with the Universal app, which is exciting. Because that's going to take care of a lot of the heavy lifting, doing it that way, I think. Mm-hmm. I hope. It runs so far on an Xbox One.
Well, that's good.
Just not as well as I'd like it to, but it'll get there.
Well, if you need a hand with any of that, you let me know.
I would love to talk to you offline about that.
Okay.
And of course, any other platforms I can get it on, PS4, etc.
Yeah.
Maybe the NX, since it seems like that could potentially be
And so what is the NX for those who aren't in the new?
The code name for Nintendo's new console.
Yeah.
Which no one really knows what it is yet, but the leaks, assuming that they are actually leaks and not just sites trying to generate page views,
journalism
are yeah, that's. Yeah.
That's a story for a different day.
I'm holding that in desperately. But everyone who wants to know about my opinions on journalism should listen to my talk at South by Southwest at 3:30 or 3 p.m. on March 15th. It'll be on the South by South website. But yeah, I mean, I want to get it on as many platforms as possible, obviously, because that means more people get to play it, and that's my goal. I want people to play it. Oh, and give me money to play it. That's part of the goal.
Perfect.
So that I can do that whole leaving my career and make games full-time thing.
Yeah.
And if people want to find out about it, they can go to PixelMetal.com, which is the company site. Company, really just me. They could go to SombreroGame.com if they want to go straight to the game site, which they could also find from the PixelMetal site. And those are probably the two best places to go. And of course, I'm on Twitter. It's PixelMetal. There's a page on Facebook that's also PixelMetal.
Yep.
And yeah, there's lots of info on the Sombrero site now about the game. And over the next couple of days, I'll be adding lots more. That's it. I'm done.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm seeing like other podcasts you're on. I didn't realize there was even a Construct 2 podcast. This is great. And then even your Sombrero website, I love that it loads the HTML5 video in the background. It's like unobtrusive, but like really engaging and a good way to get people like sucked into your game just by visiting the site. No sound, just tons of animations. So it was very nice.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I see a lot of indie game sites that present people with walls of text, and
yeah, it's like no, people are not reading this.
Yeah, well, that's my ad and marketing background coming out, which is just show them what they're going to be buying.
That's it.
And that's it. Don't oversell it. Sell it, but don't oversell it.
Yeah. And this definitely does the case for you well. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I'd love to have you back on after your release. This way we could have a bit of a post-mortem. You can share some of your lessons about what has worked and what hasn't worked as well.
Sounds good. And yeah, let's definitely try and meet up at PAX East, and I'm sure we live so close together, we'll be in the same town before then anyway.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Dave.
I'll see you later.
See you, Dave. Bye-bye.